Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement. Your no-hype source for financial advice in making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement. You're live and local, St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, a 45-year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined this week and every week by my very capable crew, my oldest prodigal daughter, Erin Lapidus, certified financial planner and wealth manager. And my son-in-law, Rob Markham, also a financial planner and wealth manager, as well as being our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. Good morning, kiddies.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a real strategy, a step-by-step approach with several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Erin, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Gang, again, good morning.
Good morn.
It is a good morning. Not raining.
Exactly. And I was going to say we do have a little bit of things we want to talk about this morning. But I do want to remind everybody that there are lots of ways that you can keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right. Log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. On the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us button, request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that appears. It says Sign Up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and Rob keeps the last 12 months, really the last 18 months, archived for you. Or if you sign up, he'll send it out to you every single month at the very first of the month.
And we've got some great articles in our quickly approaching end of the month, April 2025 newsletter you're going to enjoy. I can't believe how quickly this month has gone by. It just seems like just speed running the months now. But the first article, Tax Time, Procrastination Can Be Common and Costly. We hope everyone filed their taxes and got them in on time. But, 3 out of 10 Americans say they'd rather go to the dentist than file their taxes, and over half say they rush to complete them. And we certainly hope no one was put under the gun and rushed to complete them. But we have a really interesting infographic below the article laying out some of the top reasons why taxpayers procrastinate. And, 42%, it's filing is just too time consuming.
It does take a bit of time to collect all of the data, input it, or you got to go down to the accountant or the tax preparer.
Or your mom.
That's also true. Sometimes you have in-house assistants.
Exactly.
And our next article, Debt After Debts. How are debts settled after someone dies? Debts are paid in a specific order. Secured debts first, mortgages, car loans, funeral expenses, taxes, medical bills. And then you have unsecured debts, such as credit cards and personal loans. Important to note here, if you are a co-signer on loans or a joint account holder with the deceased on a credit card, you can and most likely will be responsible for paying those debts. If you inherit a home with a mortgage, you now inherit more often than not the mortgage payments. So it's just something to keep in mind. And lastly, I would just say just be on the lookout for debt collectors. If you're not legally responsible for these debts, you cannot be harassed by debt collectors. And, I hate to say it, but when a loved one passes away, scammers do come out of the woodwork, so you certainly want to be aware of that. And our next article, using catch-up contributions for a more comfortable retirement. 2024 survey found only 1/3 of workers felt that their retirement accounts were keeping them on track for a comfortable retirement. But the great news is there are plenty of ways that you can turbocharge your savings using catch-up provisions. And it's a very generous, if you're part of a 401k, 403b, or a 457 plan, you now can sock up to $23,500 in those plans. But with using the catch-up provisions, if you're over 50, you can sock away another $7,500. And they even have the super catch-up for workers between ages 60 and 63, allowing for even more savings. So you could bring your grand total to, let's see, $34,750. It's very, very generous. And they have a great infographic here just showing the differences between those that took advantage of the catch-up provisions versus those that didn't. And in all cases that the article outlines, it's a massive increase. So just something to be aware of if you feel that you're not on pace in your retirement accounts. And the last article, have you checked your Social Security statements lately? If you haven't, you can view your Social Security statements online at ssa.gov. You can create an account, log in, see exactly where you are. Past age 60, Social Security should be sending you out a letter every year just to touch base with you and to show you where you are in your Social Security. And I just wanted to finish with this, there is no benefit to not taking your Social Security at age 70 because you no longer receive the 8% bump up. So if you've waited all the way until age 70, it's time to give yourself a pat on the back and take that benefit because it will not grow anymore.
That's a great point.
I was going to say it's kind of interesting because we know that there's discussion right now. Mm-hmm. We don't know how far it's gone about Social Security benefits becoming exempt from federal income taxes.
There was a time in which they were exempt. I think it was pre-Reagan administration.
I thought Bill Clinton did that.
Exactly. It started in the Clinton. So I will tell you that I was looking at my Social Security statement last night, coincidentally, at ssa.gov under the My Login feature. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, I really need to take this money at some point in time. I don't really want to wait till 70, but I'm going to wait until I hear what happens with tax reform. Because if it does make it income exempt from taxes, and again, we don't even know if they're going to put income limits on that. Can't tell.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So, when we hear that Social Security could be tax exempt, that might create another tiered system like they have now, which is if half of your Social Security plus all of your other income is less than $32,000, then you don't pay taxes on Social Security even today. If it's between $32,000 and $44,000, then 50% of your Social Security becomes taxable, and then the final bracket is above that $44,000. 85% of your Social Security benefit becomes taxable. So they could adjust brackets significantly, making more people's Social Security tax exempt, but not everyone's.
It's interesting. I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. I was thinking that they might come back and go, right, if your income is under $200,000 as an example, they may say you're exempt, and if you're over, too bad. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to wait.
Sure.
Because hopefully, at least the rumors are that we're going to have some type of a vote about this within the next 30 days.
I also think it'll be important to determine how they make Social Security, how they've made those changes. Is it legislation that's going to become permanent, or is it going to be part of the tax bill where it's going to have to be renegotiated in several years again, just as many tax bills are, because that could, maybe you get a 5-year break. I don't know if some people will say I'll take the break, or, that doesn't really lead to stability and long-term planning because we're not sure how that'll pan out.
There you go. Again, we call it the Coach's Corner. Easy to access. Just go to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that Coach's Corner newsletter icon in the bottom left-hand corner, or as you're scrolling through our website, it shows up, I believe, floating icon on every page, so you can always sign up if you like.
That's right.
And the new one drops in the middle of next week, so be on the lookout for that.
And again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the ever-popular KTRS text line. Before we start getting into the things, as I have said for many years, we always have a lot of things on our mind. What's more important is what's on yours. We'd love to hear from you. I think it's important to at least mention that we had a great upward movement this week in the financial market. It was certainly a welcome relief. The S&P 500 index up 5%, NASDAQ up over 7%, Dow, etc. It followed. And so, whew,
Yeah, maybe a sigh of relief for a moment.
Breath of fresh air. That fear factor in looking at your information, whether it's online, your statements, etc. Don't worry about it. The markets are showing some recovery. Hopefully that'll be something that'll be sustained. And frankly, accounts should be getting very close, depending on your asset mix. Mm-hmm. I was perusing some of our clients this morning. We're pretty close to even for the year.
Well, I was going to say that for reference, I think that right now, as of Friday, we're across all of the indexes sitting pre-Liberation Day. So all of the volatility and uncertainty that was generated in the markets after the tariff announcements, we've recovered that. But as most people remember, the beginning of the year until the beginning of April was not the smoothest ride for the markets, even to start the year. So we still have some work to do to recover, to see all-time highs again. But we have, over the course of the last week or so, really put a dent in some of the significant volatility that we saw.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is because during our coaching sessions that I have with clients this week, many of them were talking about, well, hey, should I put this expenditure off because my accounts have
seen some depreciation?
Exactly. And, my answer to them has been no. The markets are going to go up and down. I mean, if you felt negatively at the beginning of last week, most likely you recovered whatever you were thinking about spending by the end of this week.
Also, hopefully you have cash aside for some of the things that you've been planning for. I know that for many of our clients, if we knew in advance, like people have vacations that they've planned, remodels that they've planned, we were setting aside cash in preparation for some of those needs. And that's something that you should do regardless of what the market looks like, is planning for your upcoming expenses, be those good or maybe some emergencies. You're always having that extra cash in your savings account, but even in your investment account, are you modeling your portfolio to meet your needs? And part of that might be some short or longer term cash needs.
You're right, honey, but I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were saying, we want to remodel the guest bathroom.
Ooh.
But we're not really sure, and I really want to do. I'm like, why?
Why do it or why not do it?
No, I can't stand walking by and looking at this bathroom the way it is. I'm like, well, if you feel like that, get to it. Go have a little bit of fun. We live in the freest, the fairest economy, the best, if you want to say, best example of capitalism that there is. And we're going to talk about this next weekend, because next weekend is the end of our 19th year here on KTRS.
Really?
Well, my 19th year, yes, here on KTRS. And I think we might be doing a little bit of look back.
Like 19 years in the market?
Like
sure.
Decades in review?
Ooh, I like that.
I mean, what are the good things that have happened? What are the negative things that happened? And where are the markets today versus then? Where's technology today versus then? And I'm sure that we'll all come to the conclusion that administrations come and go, tornadoes come and go, hurricanes come and go. Good things happen, not so good things happen, but the market continues to move forward. And that's why we want to be invested and stay invested, right?
I think this week was a great illustration in what you always like to say. It's easy to get out, but when and how do you get back in? And, if you got jittery as the sell-off intensified and maybe you sold, like now you're sitting on the sideline and you weren't able to take part in this week's gains. And, we're all hopeful that they continue. And if they do, now you're into a situation where you don't want to buy now because they're continuing to go up and you're waiting for it to come back, but it may not come back.
Well, and also the biggest gains occur for you at the bottom of the market, not at the top.
That's right. We talked about that a few weeks ago when we saw that 200-point rally in the Dow in one day. It's
2,000.
I'm sorry, 2,000. 200 point. I guess now we're also shell shocked. 200-point rally sounds nice.
He threw you off when he went back 20 years.
Fair enough, right? Inflation in all things, but with the 2,000-point rally, and that's, I think, the largest rally or the top 3 rally in Dow history. But unfortunately, the other 2 times don't hold very great company because they happened also during pretty extreme bear markets. So it is important that we consider staying invested over a long period of time, because it's not timing the market, it's your time in the market. We have these conversations with clients in volatile and also in calm times, which is you didn't build the wealth that brought you to retirement in a single day. You built it not only over your hard work and time, but you used the power of the market to help elevate your hard work or help intensify your hard work. We need that same element in retirement, especially because in most cases you are not adding to your accounts any longer. You're strategically taking withdrawals from those accounts. So it's important to look back, and I guess we'll do that next week, at how you got to where you are and use those same principles to move forward. And
maybe even review some of the events over the last 20 years, because they haven't been insignificant.
We've seen some great pieces, I think, that will absolutely bring those data points along with us next week to go over not just the last 20 years. Maybe we'll extend it out a little further than that to look back at some of the other events that have happened that the market's recovered from.
Yeah, I mean, it's curious because we tend to have very short memories, especially when it comes to the bad times. And one of the statistics that Erin, that you dug up, which was provided to us by J.P. Morgan, was about how many times the market has actually declined by 10%. The S&P 500, and during that year, actually ended up being higher at the end of the year.
34 out of 35 times over the last, I think, 40 years, we've seen a 10% or more pullback in the S&P 500. And of those 35 times, 34, we've seen positive returns by the time we get to the end of the year. That's why it was almost, if we could put a silver lining on our pullback, it's nice that it happened at the beginning of the year. That gives us the rest of the year to see recovery, or even to see a little bit more of a pullback, and then hopeful, consistent recovery over the year. I
mean, we talk about having a short memory. I think the pullback that we've seen has to be looked at against the last couple of years, where we had a 30% gain in the markets in 2023, and then 2024 was another 18%. So, I mean, these are sizable gains, so it's not unreasonable to think there would be a consolidation period after that, or even a little bit of a pullback.
That's a great point. And to your point, Dad, talking about short memories, if we look at the first 2 years of the Biden administration, that was 18 months of a pretty consistent decline as we were watching rates rise. That was only 5 years ago. That started, and now, the last 2 years have been so positive that having to live through the last, 4 months has been a little difficult, but we always seem to come out positive on the other side. At least that's what history tells us. Before we take our first break of the hour, we do have a great text question on deck.
And our texter writes, what are your thoughts on fixed annuities? They seem popular right now. Now, they could play a positive role in your portfolio if you were looking to lock in a higher interest rate for longer. There's a lot of talk about interest rates coming down. Maybe this could be one of your last chances to lock one in for a longer period of time. Now, if you can live with the liquidity restrictions, because there are liquidity restrictions with annuities. They also come with a surrender period. That's the period in which you will incur a penalty if you withdraw money from the contract. Now, a lot of fixed annuities come with a withdrawal corridor. We'll just use 10% as a nice round number. So you could withdraw up to 10% from the contract without incurring a penalty. So but these are again a little bit complicated financial instruments. So it's the kind of thing you'd want to sit down with someone, I think, before you pull the trigger, so you get a full view of what the landscape looks like before you lock your money up.
I would say that we have found that most of our clients who are considering annuities, or actually people that purchased them or before they became involved with us, generally did this with after-tax money. Mm. And one of the unique features of a fixed annuity contract, especially one that's not inside of a retirement plan, is that the tax law permits that interest that's earned will grow income tax deferred until the contract is either surrendered, or alternatively, when you begin to withdraw money, you withdraw interest. It's called last in, first out. Think of it that way. Your interest gets pulled out first, and then you get into your principal. So many folk we've seen, I mean, we could give lots of examples. Mom passes away. I inherit some money. I'm not interested in paying interest or having taxable income from CDs, etc. Is there an alternative for me to grow my money in a safe way with a fixed rate of interest for a fixed period of time? Well, that's one scenario where we're seeing fixed annuities are very well used. But as Rob really did point out, these are complex contracts. They have a term generally that's stated where the interest is going to be paid. There also is what we call a surrender period, which means that if you say, give me my dough back,
all of it,
you don't necessarily get all of it back during that surrender period. There also is, what, as Rob was saying, withdrawal privileges, where the contract will permit you to pull money up to a certain percentage every year. And again, when those withdrawals are made, they're subject to do you have interest in that contract? That's going to get pulled first, and until we really empty that part of the account out, that's when we get to the principal.
So I think at the heart of the question is, what are our thoughts on them? I think you always say this best, Dad, which is any financial instrument that you're going to use is a tool to get you to where you want to go. It is not the solution. So if you are someone that's been watching the bond market and you say, I don't know if I've seen all the volatility leave the bond market yet, but I am looking to create a fixed rate of interest for myself without market volatility, a fixed annuity might be a good solution or a good alternative to a piece of your fixed income portfolio.
Because the interest rate is generally higher than you can receive in a CD. Or in a money market account.
And it's guaranteed for generally a longer amount of time. Usually we see CDs that are 18, maybe 24 months at the top end. Many annuity contracts will offer up to 3, 5, 10 years even. So that would be something that you'd want to discuss with your advisor before making that decision. But there are many pros to these two fixed annuity contracts. There are also some drawbacks to them, but I think the important thing is that you're using it for a purpose, because although certain asset classes or certain types of products might become popular during different points of time, that doesn't necessarily mean they are a good fit for your portfolio.
And there are no such thing as good deals.
Right.
That's something folks want to remember. There's no deals are great, no deals are unique. As my daughter likes to say, when you need a screwdriver, you don't use a hammer.
I say that?
Uh-huh. and I like that. I like that idea. Use the right tool to fit the situation.
I think it's time to take our first break of the hour, but we've got a few more text questions on deck. So when we get back, we will be here to answer those for you.
Let's give out that number, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
Can I get serious for a moment? Something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is my front yard and taking care of your front yard. Because when you drive by someone's house and it's full of weeds, you think to yourself, oh man, it's very, very simple. You know how much I love to pretend to be a yard dork. You know what I use? Fertilome. I go to fertilome.com and I type in my zip code, and a whole host of local independent lawn and garden dealers show up. I buy the crabgrass preventer plus lawn food. It's the spring application. I get it down on my yard as soon as possible, and that greens up my yard and keeps the weeds away. So it makes me look like I know what I'm doing. But really, all I'm doing is getting Fertilome and putting it on my front yard. And that will take care of my yard for many, many, many weeks, and it go a long way to having the greenest yard in the block. So this spring, you want to green up your yard and get rid of the weeds? It all starts at Fertilome or fertilome.com.
If it rains where you live, it can flood where you live. Everyone in the St. Louis region lives in a flood zone. For most flood insurance policies, there is a 30-day waiting period before coverage begins, and 1 out of every 3 flood claims occur in low to moderate flood risk zones. That's why MSD Project Clear is urging St. Louis residents and businesses to know your zone. Review your resources and options today to protect your property and get assistance when you need it the most. Visit knowyourzone.org. That's knowyourzone.org. If you suffer from burning, tingling, or numb feet, listen closely as we discuss neuropathy with Dr. Patton, D.C. What is neuropathy?
Peripheral neuropathy is nerve damage to the feet and legs.
And what are the symptoms?
The symptoms are numbness, burning, tingling, pain, and loss of balance.
Is neuropathy treatable?
It's absolutely treatable, and we have amazing results.
If you have burning, tingling, numbness, coldness in your feet or hands, or balance issues, call Comprehensive Integrated Healthcare today for a nerve damage screening. Don't wait until your symptoms are so severe that nothing can be done. End-stage neuropathy leaves people confined to walkers, wheelchairs, even amputations. The first 10 callers will receive a free nerve damage screening. Simply call 636-241-9370. Act now. Call 636-241-9370. Be among the first 10 callers and get this important screening for free. 636-241-9370.
For 55 years now, AAA Home Services has been a leader in selling and servicing American Standard heating and air conditioning, as well as servicing all brands. And right now is the best time to buy a new system from AAA. Take advantage of the best rebates and offers of 2025 from the experts in home services. Call AAA at 636-397-3200 for the best incentives on American Standard. Open 6 days a week. Online at AAASTL.com. Call AAA. We're on our way.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS. This is Straight Talk on Retirement. It's 9:34 here. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are here to answer your calls, as well as your text at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. I think you told me we have some carryover.
We have some carryover, and we have a brand new caller on the line.
Woo-hoo.
Good morning, Robert.
Hello. I have a question about annuities, a specific one, which is a QLAC annuity, to use it to defer the dreaded required minimum distribution for a little bit longer. What circumstances do you recommend this annuity, or do you feel like you ever use it?
I would say that we've never used it. And the reason is that most of our clients, when they're purchasing an annuity contract, they're typically using it as an income tool to create an income stream to assist them in making their retirement income a little steadier. And I guess I haven't been very comfortable in the past in looking at the restrictions on these QLAC annuity contracts, and so therefore I would tell you that you haven't figured it out. I'm just not a fan.
Well, I was thinking of using it as a substitute for long-term care insurance, rather than pay premiums for a policy which you may never use.
Okay, so if you don't mind my asking, sir, do you happen to have, let's say, CDs, money market accounts, other assets that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, there are what we call non-insurance premium options, where what we can do is you can purchase an annuity contract, as an example, that can provide a long-term care benefit, which you don't use it or lose it. And at the same time, what happens is you still keep the liquidity. So I might suggest that you might, if you don't want to pay premiums, you might not want to tie yourself up on the back end with this particular type of annuity, maybe I guess we'll call it a fixed annuity, because that's what these really are. Which has that feature may be of even more benefit for you.
And also, don't QLACs eventually require income to be withdrawn?
Yeah.
So the alternative, potentially using a long-term care annuity or an annuity with a long-term care rider, alleviates the requirement of the income need, but it still provides the potential for additional long-term care benefits if necessary.
Well, that plus with the type of contracts that we're looking at, based upon the way you answer certain health questions, that amount that you put into these contracts could be magnified up to 3 times, which is a little different than putting money into into a QLAC. So we appreciate your call, and I would certainly say that if we've given you some ideas, obviously you're not purchasing this QLAC on your own. Maybe go back to your advisor and say, hey, what are some of these non-qualified options I was hearing about from those smart people on the radio?
Also, I would just add the one last piece of this with the QLACs, which is you get to avoid the required minimum distributions for like up to $200,000 is what you can defer into those until the latest is age 85. And that's when your required minimum distributions are, you're not at the 4% level, you're at
like
the
10.
8.
Right.
Yeah.
Between 8 and 10 by the time you get to 85, and now you are required to start pulling from the QLAC as well at a certain rate. So maybe you kick the can down the road a little bit, but by the time you get to 85, it could be up significantly, because your ultimate goal, even with required minimum distributions, is not to drain your IRA accounts. It's to continue to grow inside and make those distributions as necessary.
Yeah, honey. And again, you're making a very good point here, which is, those distributions are going to be taxable.
And they are mandated.
Exactly. And so with using non-qualified assets, you can really achieve the same objective, but the cool part is the money coming to you is income tax free. So I would certainly say to our caller, you're doing some investigating.
Which is a good idea.
Which is great, but you may not be using the right tool to get to the goal that you want to get to. There are other things that are out there.
Sure.
So thanks again for that call. We really do appreciate it. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the Heating Up text line.
And it is heating up. Our next texter writes, I turned 70 in February 1st next year. Will Social Security automatically start sending me my Social Security check, or do I need to do something? Is there a deadline for getting my Social Security payment started? Excuse me this morning.
My goodness.
Can't get out the word Social Security.
All right. So unfortunately, although the government does know who you are and how old you are, you do have to let them know that you want to begin taking your Social Security benefit. So you need to log on to ssa.gov. I believe that's the easiest way to do it at this point. You can call the Social Security office. You'll probably be on hold for quite some time, and they may refer you back to the website unless you want to make an appointment online. There are very few Social Security offices that are open any longer for walk-ins, and very few will allow you to make appointments simply to start your benefit. The in-person appointments are usually for issues or complicated situations. So again, log on to ssa.gov, create that My Social Security account that Rob mentioned during the newsletter, and if you are turning 70 in February of next year and you want your benefits to begin in February, you're going to want to apply about 3 months in advance, which means at the end of this year rather. If you request that your benefit begin in February, your first check is going to come in March. If you request January, you'll see your first check in February. They are going to give you those options when you log in. Now, if you create the account right now and you log in, it's only going to give you the next 3 months available to you. So you'll want to wait until you get to the end of the year so you can let that benefit grow until you're 70 years old, and you'll get the maximum that you've been waiting for.
And just a couple of caveats to that. There's no good reason not to take it at 70, and every month that you wait, you're still getting an increase in that benefit. So if you don't want to hold
until 70,
right? If you don't want to wait all the way till 70, say next couple of months, I think I'm going to start it up. You don't have to wait till the calendar year is ended to actually get a partial increase in that benefit. So you're not shooting yourself in the foot by waiting.
Right. So like you said, the 8% doesn't increase annually. It increases monthly. So it's like 0.66% every month is how much your benefit will increase by. So you don't have to wait the full 12 months to get a portion of the 8%. It's a good point.
Which is great.
It is great.
Good question.
And our next texter writes, I am about to inherit my mother's IRA and Roth IRA. Are they subjects to continued RMDs? She was 94. In addition to inheriting your mother's IRA and Roth IRAs, you've inherited her RMD schedule, which isn't a bad thing because the IRS mandates that you have those accounts emptied within 10 years. So it may seem like, oh, gee, why do I have to take what she was taking? But you're going to have to take it anyway because those accounts must be liquidated at the end of 10 years, lest you face a penalty.
Right. So the traditional IRA, the minimum you can take is what mom was taking. And so the IRS will let you know that. I'm sorry, not the IRS, your custodian. So wherever you're holding that IRA is going to let you know what the RMD minimum is. You can take as much as you'd like from the traditional IRA, but as Rob said, it has to be liquidated within 10 years. Now, the Roth IRA does not have a required minimum distribution associated with it because it won't be taxable to you. However, it also must be liquidated within 10 years. So that one might be a little bit easier for you to make the determination if you say, hey, I just want to pull it all right now, move it into an after-tax account, or I have an expense and I would like to use some of this money to pay for that. That might be an easier decision to make in terms of taxes.
Or let it go and let it grow.
Right, or let it go all the way for 10 years, pull it out in the 10th year, and you were able to take advantage of a decade of tax-deferred growth inside of the Roth account. The IRA account the traditional IRA account will have to liquidate.
And just one thing I would add: if you are working and contributing to a 401k, what you might want to consider doing is turning up your contributions to your 401k on one side, while you take your mother's traditional IRA distributions on the other side, which will offset some of the taxes. So you'll be putting money into your own 401k, tax deferred, and you'll be paying taxes on the withdrawals that you have to take out of mom's IRA. So it's just a way the IRS won't allow you to import your mother's IRA into your 401k or IRA account. But by doing it this way, you can kind of reverse engineer it and end up at just about the same place.
And if you'd like more details on reverse engineering, that is a great video that we do have on the website, jblfinancial.com. You can see my dad doing an excellent presentation with some graphics that he drew by himself. So
in my pre-Weight Watchers mode, yes.
So some excellent additional information if you're someone in this position. And with mom having been 94, you might be in that opportunity to super catch up that's been added. So you might have a lot of room potentially to defer some of those taxes a little bit longer.
Yeah, this is certainly a textbook reason for you to visit with your advisor. There are so many options that are available to you, and as our clients are passing away and we're helping them move their money to their next generation, i.e. their beneficiaries, these are tax planning visits. How can we effectively and most effectively get mom or dad's money into your accounts without Uncle Sam taking a big bite?
Or, if our clients are in the position, which have been in many cases, which they're already retired, already taking distributions from their retirement accounts, how do we balance the inheritance that they've received with the requirements that they've also inherited in terms of making distribution with what they're already doing? So how do we integrate mom and dad's or aunt and uncle's portfolio into the portfolio that you already have?
We call this fun.
It's a math problem and a war game.
Exactly.
And we do this every single day.
We do, right. and it's a lot of fun. And again, this is a really good reason to get a second opinion.
Certainly. That's also a great time if you're someone that hasn't visited with an advisor in the past. Maybe this is your opportunity to say that it's a good time to hear about what some of my other options are or what some roads I might be able to take with this money versus, it's always great to inherit some money, but if we can put it to work in the right way for you, this might be a great chance for you to see what other alternatives are out there.
Yeah, and, not kicking this horse anymore, but this also creates a great rebalancing opportunity for you. You're getting other assets that are coming in. They may not necessarily be cash.
Right.
Especially if they're inside of an IRA and we're just moving your portion to an inherited IRA. And so this could be a great time to rebalance your portfolio, get yourself back into the right configuration you want to be, or to one that and then certainly number two is dealing with other goals you might have. Whether it's, hey, do I pay off the mortgage? Do I get repaired? I mean, talking about money.
Right. Is this accelerating some of the plans that you had, or is this just augmenting the plans that you've already had?
Fun.
You know what else is fun?
Taking break 2 of the hour.
That's right.
So don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these brief messages.
I'm Mark Miller, owner of Miller Furniture and Mattress, your home for quality American-made furniture since 1927. We offer the largest selection of Amish-made furniture in the St. Louis area, plus quality living room furniture from Flex Steel and Smith Brothers. We carry top-quality mattresses from world-famous brands like Tempur-Pedic, Stearns & Foster, and Chatham & Wells. Shop our Belleville, Fairview Heights, Lake St. Louis, and Ellisville showrooms. At Miller Furniture, we put the family in furniture.
Hallmark Stone is a wholesale fabricator of granite and quartz countertops. They normally only sell to kitchen and bath shops, home stores, remodelers, and builders. But once a year, they open their doors to the general public to benefit Annie's Hope and Carney's Kids charities. This Saturday and Sunday is that weekend. It's the 21st annual Granite Remnant Sale, where you can buy granite remnants at up to 50% off retail pricing. Remnants are great for vanity tops, fireplace surrounds, small bar tops, and more. David Sherwood and Anne-Marie Boges will be broadcasting live on Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So come by and say hello. Hallmark Stone is located off I-44 at the Soccer Park exit. For directions, call 636-349-1288, or better yet, check out their website at hallmarkstone.com. Enjoy extreme savings while benefiting local charities. What a great combination. Stop by Hallmark Stone's 21st annual Granite Remnant Sale this Saturday and Sunday. For more information, visit hallmarkstone.com.
Hey everybody, Josh here, and with 12 different varieties, you can have an original Dogtown pizza every day of the week and still have some left over. From sausage and pepperoni to bacon and veggie, there are plenty of options to choose from, and everyone's a winner. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 12 varieties of Dogtown pizza at every local grocery store. Have you had your Dogtown today?
Tiger fans, the 13th annual Griggs LaPointe Mizzou SEC Summit is Wednesday, May 14th at Greenbrier Hills Country Club in Kirkwood, benefiting the Missouri Athletics Fund. Hear from Athletics Director Laird Veach, Chancellor Moon Choi, and basketball coach Dennis Gates, along with radio analyst Howard Richards. Tickets are available for the evening with hors d'oeuvres and cocktails, followed by a dinner buffet. Make your plans to attend the 2025 Griggs LaPointe Mizzou SEC Summit. Register online at GriggsLaPointeSummit.com.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, Your floor mats are cleaned and delivered. And your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
9:51, we're inside of our last 8 minutes and 30 seconds of the show. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the, quiet right now, KTRS text line.
Well, we got a nice variety of text already. Some Social Security, some RMD.
So,
good stuff.
While we're waiting for your calls and texts, again at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, I do want to remind everybody that we're not even half out of gas. We've got hour number 2 coming up right after this next break, so you don't want to touch that dial. We'll be having Franklin Ellis, our Medicare man specialist.
That's right.
And he is the man.
I'm getting lots of compliments on Frank's work.
I am, but we got to work on his wardrobe. It's okay. He's listening, so we can diss him a little bit here.
It's not right.
Get him a wardrobe allowance. He'd like that.
Yeah, right.
A wardrobe allowance.
Oh, my God. What are you, his dad or something? It's like allowance time?
Allowance.
That's funny. I remember the whole allowance thing.
I do remember this joke.
Yeah.
I mean, this delightful story of my youth.
Yeah. Well, Dad, my friends, they get money for...
They get money for doing chores.
Right.
Like clearing the table and making their beds.
Oh, well, if you made the bed, I would have paid you. I mean, you had no way. You never made your bed.
Picked my clothes up off the floor.
Well, no, we sort of thought it was like a rumble through the jungle when it was going into your room because you just like to pile it. We got rid of the drawers because you like the floor better.
I like to be able to see everything.
Yes.
Like it all laid out. Yeah, well, you left out the best part of the story, which is what you said to me when I said, Dad, can I have an allowance? And you said you aren't going to be paid to be a member of the family.
Right. And then
the follow-up to that was you can have Hanukkah every day.
Which is your life right now.
Right. Or you could have an allowance. So I, being the smart advisor, even as a child, decided that I would take Hanukkah every day.
It's hard to look a gift horse in the mouth.
Right. Exactly.
Even if he likes you. That's right.
Likes me.
Miss Hanukkah every day. Okay.
That's right.
So,
speaking of children.
Okay.
Well, right? That's what our topic's about.
I thought you were going to talk about... Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry to disappoint.
Come on, Team Jeff. Help me here. You know what we talk about when we're talking about children. Okay,
think I would just announce that on the radio like that?
I don't know, but I would have been shocked. I probably would have cried. It's okay. But in either case, while we're waiting for your calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
We don't even have to wait. We've got a great one.
Woo-hoo.
Our next texter writes, if you pay estimated taxes on Social Security and they pass a no tax on Social Security law, will they refund your money?
In April.
Well.
When you file.
Of course they will.
Right, but you're not going to get the refund until April because you'll have to file your tax. You have to file your return in order to get the funds back, is my guess.
Yeah, or you can then apply that to the next year's return if you prefer, as a credit.
Right. Yes.
If you want to be patriotic and make an interest-free loan to our wonderful government.
But also the caveat to that, because we were joking a little bit, is it depends upon how the legislation is written. Is it going to be retroactive to January 1st of 25, or is it going to go into effect at a certain date? Right. So there's going to be, this is all theoretical until it happens.
It depends on how the sausage is made.
Exactly.
As in all things.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a greed point of view, I hope that they do go retroactively to the first of the year. And I would love if they don't put any income limitation on this deal, because then I'm going to take my dough. I'm reading the sign. I'm applauding.
I don't think they can hear you.
We'll have to have them tape that in. So, in either case, very good question. We do appreciate that. And while we're waiting for other texts or calls, Robert, let's do this one. We got about 5 minutes.
All right.
All right. Pro rata versus per stirpes.
It's not a disease.
Or even a description of diseases. What we're talking about is beneficiary designations. When you're making a beneficiary designation on, your IRA, your 401k, brokerage account, etc., your advisor has an opportunity to check a box about pro rata or per stirpes. Pro rata means is that if you have more than one person, as an example, I have 2 daughters, wonderful children.
We are.
Miss Hanukkah's every day, 2 of them. Both of them chose the same thing, as you can imagine. If one of them were to predecease me or my wife, we would want that share to go to their surviving sibling.
So first it was divided 50-50.
Right.
If something happened to my sister or I, her name is Jody, so we can make this simple. Something happens to Jody or I, and you don't update your beneficiary designations before something happens to you and Mom, then 100% would go to the surviving child.
Right, and we call that pro rata. And by the way, up until about a couple of years ago, that's the only choice that we had as advisors.
Right, because that's what the forms allowed you to make.
But not anymore. There is what we call per stirpes. Per stirpes means is that the money stays in the family tree. So using an example, let's just assume that, again, with my 2 daughters, Erin and Jody, and let's just assume that one of them blessed me with grandchildren.
Or how about you could just say both of us blessed you with grandchildren, because that still works, right? Like an abundance of blessings, a cornucopia of blessing.
I would start, singing "Dream the Impossible Dream." Okay, but if that did occur for one or both of them, please listen, Lord. What I would certainly not want to do is to disinherit my grandchildren if their parents predeceased me. So with a per stirpes designation, what we can do is keep that money in the family tree. So as an example, if it happened to have been Erin passes away before Jody, her portion of the inheritance she would receive from my wife and I would then go directly to our angelic grandchildren, her children.
Right, and this is important because in many cases, your advisors or your bank is not updating beneficiary information because you might not be. It's probably something that you're not thinking about. So in this example, if I were to pass away and Dad, you didn't update the documents to reflect that, that I'm no longer here. You want to replace me with our children. So it's Jody gets 50%. And
what are their names?
We'll talk about it. Okay. I don't think you get to be part of that decision, though. Okay. The 2 children, they get 25 each, reflective of my original 50%.
So why are we bringing this up? Why this is a big deal? Well, I had a situation the other day with a discussion with a client who had 2 children. One of them was married, had 2 children. The other one wasn't. And I said, well, we can change this to per stirpes so that your daughter, it goes to her children. She said, no. Money will all go to my son, and then he can gift it. He can get it. Then he'll hand it out to my grandchildren. I said, well, why do it? You know that if he does this, it could be a gift. It would be considered a gift. And that would be one significant reason as not to do that, especially if one of them were to predecease our client, Sally. And we know that the gift tax limitation is approximately $18,000 a year.
And with that, we'll be back for...
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. And as always, we're going to kick off hour number 2 with our smart choices about your health care. But we have Frank, or Frankie, as we often call him now, in the studio with us this morning. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Well, as we know, Medicare is one of my favorite things to discuss and share. So I have this story this morning about this lady named Mary, and I'm going to explain to you all just how prepared Mary was.
Did she read the Medicare and You book?
Oh, she did a lot more than that.
Oh, my gosh.
She did a lot more than that.
Okay.
Now, that Medicare and You book, everyone should be getting those every single year. That's going to explain how Medicare works for you.
I don't even think Congress has read that, so.
Oh, no. If they read that, they would redo the entire book because all it does is just confuse people.
Yes.
And that was kind of part of Mary's problem. She had done so much research that it just, at some point, it just became way too overwhelming, way too confusing, because we know that there's just so many different plans and different scenarios. So, of course, she called us and wanted to sit down with me and pick my brain about it. So Mary, like many people out there, she wanted to make the absolute best decision for her health choice. Okay, that's understandable. So what she did was she just did a ton of research through the Medicare and You book, looking at all the different plans and scenarios, talking to doctors, talking to her friends. Of course, we know a lot of people pick their plan based on what their friends say.
Mm-hmm.
So talking to her friends, and then also having the experience of both of her parents being on Medicare as well. So
she had some analysis paralysis?
Exactly. I like that. Analysis paralysis. So while we were meeting, I could tell that she had a pretty decent understanding on how these plans worked. So she knew that traditional Medicare, she had the option to just take a traditional Medicare. A, of course, would be free for her, cover her hospital. B, would cost her $185 a month and cover her doctors. She understood that if she did traditional Medicare, it would be a la carte, so she'd have to buy a supplemental plan, either a Plan N or a Plan G, for $150 to $180, and that's in addition to that Part B that she was already going to be paying. She understood that she would need a separate prescription drug plan. She also had a decent understanding that the Medicare Advantage plans would be free, but she didn't necessarily understand completely how they worked, when you were to pay, what you were paying for, if it was going towards anything. But she knew that it was a free plan that packaged everything together. So she would get her dental, her vision, her hearing, health plan, and drug plan all in one plan.
Sounds like she was really prepared.
Very prepared.
And I was just going to say to that note, if you're listening right now and you're like, what? I'm not that prepared. You do not need to be that prepared to come in and chat with Frank, because he's going to explain all that to you.
That's right.
Without any homework on your part. Now, if you've done the homework like Mary, that's a different story, but this is certainly not a requirement. That's part of what working with a professional can help you mitigate.
That's right. That's right. And I love talking to people either way, whether you know kind of how Medicare works, or whether it's your first time and you haven't looked at anything whatsoever and you talk to me. I love explaining how this stuff works to these people. In Mary's case, it was an interesting conversation because since she already knew some of the more basic things, I was able to get into a little bit of a deeper conversation with her.
Awesome.
And so the main thing, aside from all the research she had done, the main thing is that she had seen how these plans worked before through her parents.
Okay.
So when her parents were alive, they both had the Plan F. And I know that because she said, Frank, the plan was so great that whenever they got sick and they needed to use their plan, I never saw a bill. So that tells me, okay, that must have been that Plan F that was around before January 2020.
And also, we often see, especially people that are aging into Medicare now, their parents had access to the Plan F supplement, and that was really one of the most popular options because when our clients' parents were making decisions, Medicare Advantage plans were not as good as they are now. So a lot of people, that was the default decision.
That's right. That's right. Now, that Plan F, it was very expensive for her parents. They were paying about $350 a month for that plan
Per
F.
person.
Per person. So while she liked how the plan worked, she didn't necessarily like watching their savings account dip down every single month because of how much they were paying for these supplemental plans.
Sure.
So she was very curious about the Medicare Advantage plans and how they worked. But she did have some reservations and she did have some questions. And again, we were able to get into a little bit deeper conversation on how these Medicare Advantage plans work. Okay. So she wanted to know, she heard a lot of different things from her friends about the Advantage plan. She had heard from some doctors some things about the Advantage plan. But since I was her last stop, and this was it, she was going to make her final decision on what she wanted to start with under Medicare.
Oh, man, so she had already stressed herself out enough that she was like, after I talk to Frank, we're making a decision.
Did you tell her, you should have just come here first?
That's right. You come here first, you get all of the information that you need, and you're able to make your selection.
And also, we're joking about that, but there is never any requirement that you make a decision the day that you sit down with Frank. That's a good reason why. One, if you're already working with us, we invite you in with plenty of time to be able to go home, think about it, come up with 150 questions for Frank to answer in the meantime. So there are never any pressure decisions to make. But it sounds like Mary wasn't under pressure so much as she was exhausted.
That's right. That's right. She was ready. She just needed to understand a little bit more about the program and how they worked in the deeper side of things, not just the stuff that you hear on TV, get your free this, get your dental. She wanted to know really how these plans work. And that's what I discussed with her. So the first thing that I mentioned to her was that the plans require prior authorization. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what exactly is prior authorization? So prior authorization is you're going to get a health service done, and your doctor's going to submit the information to the insurance company. So let's just say you got a broken hip or something. I'm choosing broken hip because I'm kind of my own hip is kind of hurting from soccer lately. But let's say broken hip. So you need the surgery. Your doctor writes the prior authorization to the insurance company. It's nothing that you have to do as the client yourself. So your doctor will take care of this.
You're not ferreting paperwork to and from.
That's right. This is all back end stuff. And now the insurance has to determine whether or not they are going to cover that specific health need. Mm-hmm. Okay. It could be a surgery. It could be hospitalization. It could be like an MRI or something like that. So
tests. It's going to be something that's probably above and beyond normal blood work, visits to the doctor. It's going to be an enhanced service.
That's right.
A test, a surgery, or an imaging.
That's right. That's right. Like Erin said, something above and beyond your regular visit or your blood work or something like that. So in most scenarios, the insurance companies are going to grant that prior authorization.
Right. If it's covered under Medicare, so like Frank's example, you have a hip issue. It needs imaging, or you're already at the point where it needs surgery. Well, that's covered under Medicare. Now, if, let's use Frank's example again. He tripped and fell while playing soccer, and now he needs a nose job.
Ooh,
right? Maybe they're not going to cover that because cosmetic surgery is not covered under Medicare. So it's important just to keep in mind that when we're looking at prior authorizations and approvals, that as long as it's covered under Medicare, in most cases, you're not part of this back end process, and you're not going to see any issues with it. They're just going to say, come on in for your procedure.
That's right. Simple enough. So prior authorization would be the number one. Mm-hmm. The number two are going to be networks. So a network is just, the doctor accept this plan? Does the hospital accept this plan? Does the provider accept this plan? There are options to where you can use in and out of network options under these plans. So you're not just confined to in-network doctors only. So kind of what I mean by that and how I explained it to her is you have two selections under Medicare Advantage. You have an HMO. Those are your health maintenance organizations. Those are the ones where you have to stay in network versus your PPO, your preferred provider organizations. These are the ones where you can go in and out of network. So the PPOs are going to work just like her parents' old Plan F.
Where you can
without
see
having to pay
like.
$350 a month.
Right, where you can see anyone you'd like. Now, the price is going to be different based on if you go in or out of network, but you're still going to have access.
That's right. You're still going to have that access. So on to number 3.
Okay.
Okay. So number 3, I just call denials because
Okay.
that's all we ever hear in the world of Medicare Advantage. Now, more people are still coming on Advantage, we know today, than they are on these traditional Medicare plans.
I think at a 3-to-1 ratio.
So even higher ratio than last year, it seems like. So more people are coming onto these plans and accepting these plans. That means that there are going to be more quote-unquote denials out there. You're going to hear about more of these things. More people are joining, so you're going to hear about more things like this happening. Now, kind of a misconception on these Medicare Advantage plans is that when something gets denied, people think, oh, my goodness, I don't have any health coverage. I'm completely denied. They're not going to cover me at all for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that aspect is actually false.
Okay.
So how I explained to Mary, when something does get denied.
So you have a prior authorization request and it was denied instead of approved.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The insurance company does not just say, hey, well, sorry for you.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. Good luck. Find a different insurance to cover it or something like that. What the insurance companies do is they offer step therapy. So for folks that have never heard of step therapy is basically an alternative to what your doctor is requesting.
So, like, your doctor may be, say, suggesting surgery, and step therapy, in this case, they could say, hey, have you tried physical therapy first?
That is correct. So I'll give you another example. So you have like a hip surgery and you need skilled nursing for a while.
Uh-huh.
So the doctor says, hey, we want you to go to skilled nursing for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The insurance company may come back after the surgery and say, instead of you going to skilled nursing, let's send you home for 2 weeks. Let's do physical therapy, and then let's reevaluate.
Okay.
If you haven't gotten any better after physical therapy, then we'll put you into skilled nursing after that. So that is an example of step therapy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's never a true denial of
services.
We're not going to cover this whatsoever. Everything is going to be out of your pocket. Good luck. They always give you alternatives.
They give you alternatives, but also you have recourse too, right? So if you receive a denial, then you can appeal that denial. If you're working with Frank, he can actually help you through the appeal process, meaning getting that started. In a lot of cases, the doctor's going to do a lot of this work for you, meaning they see the denial, they're going to go right back to the insurance company and say, well, if you're denying this, how about this instead? Or we see what the step therapy is. We don't quite agree with that. You said 2 weeks at home. They're making a deal. How about 1 week at home? We do the evaluation and then we see where we go from there. So this is a lot of times when you hear doctors very upset that they have to provide services based on what the insurance companies will allow. I would say these are more issues that happen pre-Medicare eligibility, although just like Frank said, as more people join Medicare Advantage and you're under this process, we will see more denials, but also over time, doctors get better at writing their prior authorizations to insurance companies to avoid denials, and insurance companies start to alter their decisions based on the needs of their population, because their goal, number one, is not to deny patients procedures, because that means that the doctors are going to keep coming back with more things for them to pay for, essentially. And then also, if insurance companies are making denials that Medicare determines unwarranted, they're going to get in trouble and not be able to sell their plans in certain service areas. So you have more protection with Medicare than you have with other health insurance plans. So you've got a little bit of extra backup.
Absolutely. Now, these plans are not, batting 1,000. Every single thing that you do under the plan is just going to go through with prior authorization, right. Easy peasy. But like you said, there are other ways. So one, the appeal process. If we need to appeal something, I've done this for several clients. I'm actually working on 3 right now with a few different of our clients. But we can help appeal some of those denials and work around kind of the step therapy, like you said, kind of see if we can like make a deal. with these insurance companies.
And also, we've seen some denials. I specifically remember when you were working on Frank, where the insurance company denied the prior authorization because the provider said that it was unnecessary. So there must have been some confusion between our client, the insurance company, and the provider as to what was actually necessary. So
That's right.
sometimes it does help to have someone like Frank, not only to help with the appeal process, but help with some clarity, because, you're probably in a little bit of a stressful situation if you have something going on. So having someone that's kind of seen everything before could be of great service to you.
And then you're getting something in the mail, that says, hey, this has been denied. You probably stop reading right there. You probably go in, to a little bit of panic mode. But if you keep reading, it's probably going to list out some additional alternative step therapy for you. But of course, if you don't want to read it, call me, send me that letter, and I can take a look at it. And like you said, Erin, help clear some of that stuff up.
So I know that. So right now we have a caller on the line, and she has a question about ambulatory care and helicopter services under Medicare Advantage. Is that right, Sharon?
Very good.
Yes, it is. Yes, we have a Medicare Advantage plan, and it's kind of unclear from what I read in the book and what I read with Medicare. It's kind of unclear about the ambulatory services and the ground, what is covered. Should we be looking into more coverage, such as, I don't know if you've ever heard of MASA, I believe. It's the Medical Air Service Association Transport. Should we be looking into anything like that?
Well, so you do have a copay under. I know that the Medicare Advantage plans do cover your air travel, and they cover the ground as well for the ambulance. For if you're on the Aetna plan, I believe you would pay a copay of $300.
It's about $300. So, Sharon, there's a lot of, when you're reading against a lot of different material, here's the thing. For the air, not a single air service is covered under Medicare. They are naturally out of network. What happens is when you use the service, Aetna is going to cover you at Frank said. I think it's $280 or $300 is the copay. That is what you would pay for any of those services. The reason that it's considered out of network is most likely if you're being medevac somewhere or from somewhere, you are out of network. So they are going to bring that in network because you're not going to be able to access the air service without it being an emergency. So all of these things layer onto one another to create the benefit for you. But just like our example with Mary, if you read too many things, they are going to conflict. So I wouldn't have any, we have never seen any issues with having to add additional service like that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you should add the service. Let the Medicare Advantage plan work like it's going to and make that $280 or $300 copay. However, I will say this. So they did kind of change the way that they cover your out-of-network sort of ambulance. So air travel specifically.
Got you.
They covered how they changed how they covered the air travel. The air travel used to be the exact same price as the ground travel.
Right.
So if you paid $300 for the ground, you'd pay $300 for the air. Now what they do, and the reason that it's unclear probably is because they don't have a set amount for that air travel anymore. How they do that now, Sharon, is they're going to charge you 20%.
So it's one of those covered but under a 20% charge.
Correct. It's going to be a co-insurance now. So that's why you can't get a clear number on how much the air vac is going to be, is because it's going to be 20%. Now keep in mind, you do have that max out of pocket on your plan. So if you're on the Aetna Gold HMO, your max out of pocket is $2,500. So if that bill ends up being anything around there, you'd be done at $2,500.
And most likely you were having other services, or you're going to end up with other services if you're being medevaced somewhere because there's something serious going on.
That's right.
So you'll be admitted to the hospital. You're going to have tests, procedures, labs, all of those other things. You're hitting your maximum out of pocket, most likely. There's no need to add an additional policy that's going to have a premium associated with it. The top-end protection of the maximum out of pocket is going to protect you.
That's right. That's right. So you're going to be in network no matter what, but on the ground, you have a set amount, $300, and in the air, if you have to get air vac somewhere, that's going to be a 20% coinsurance. Anything you pay is going to go towards your bottom dollar of $2,500, and then you don't pay anything past that point.
Okay. I guess what I was really confused about in this Medicare book, on page 31, it says that you pay, which would be us, we would pay 20% of the Medicare approved amount. Do they when it says Medicare approved amount, are they going to approve it or?
Well, that's because Medicare approved amount is what the insurance company and Medicare and the provider have agreed upon, but you're reading out of the book before you get to what your plan describes. So when you read out of the Medicare book, they are not assuming that you have any plan but Medicare Part A and B. So that's the base. That's right. Why, I would, and Sharon actually left a voicemail on Friday afternoon that you have an email in your inbox about this very thing. So you did the right thing, Sharon, giving Frank a call to get the answer. But that's why this can get a little complicated, because they're writing that Medicare book based on Medicare rules, not based on the additional plans that you've added to Medicare to cover over the pieces of Medicare where there are gaps.
That's right.
Okay, I understand. So I don't need no actual additional coverage.
I don't think so.
No, keep your money.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Very
Thank
good.
you for your information.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye, Sharon.
Awesome. All right, so we've got one more text question. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I have the United Healthcare HMO ST3 Advantage plan. Do I need prior authorization for an MRI that was ordered by a specialist?
Yes. So they will require the prior authorization, but that's nothing that you have to do. That's all done on the back end, and that should be just fine. I've never seen an MRI get denied.
Right. So what's going to happen is, specialist is going to write the prior authorization with the order that they requested the MRI. You make your appointment, go have your MRI. You're not going to have to worry about any of that back end side of things.
That's right.
That's it.
Good calls and good questions today.
Yeah. Really on topic too, as if they knew what you were going to say.
Yeah.
So after you had these conversations, after you went through some of the major points of Medicare Advantage with Mary, what did she decide to do?
So Mary actually decided to start out on Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
Due to several sort of reasons. One, I mentioned, her parents. She saw how much her parents were paying. She liked the coverage, but she didn't necessarily like how much the coverage cost.
Sure.
And then the stacking of having to add a drug plan, add a dental plan, just added extra layers of cost that she necessarily didn't like as well.
Also, that adds layers of complication. You've got a card for the supplement. You've got a card for the prescription drug plan. You've got a card for your dental.
Probably all three different insurance companies, too.
Right, and then you got to evaluate each of those every year versus you get it all wrapped into one.
You get it all wrapped into one.
And those prices are continuing to go up.
That is correct.
Right.
That is correct.
That's why Frank mentioned like $350 on the
Plan F.
Plan F in your 80s or 90s.
$350 today. In 2, 3, 4 years, it could be well past $400.
That's very true.
That is true. Absolutely. So after we talked about how the plans work, yes, you are going to have more networks, but you don't have to if you do the PPO. You can go out of network. So I think. Once I explained that to her, and then once I explained the step therapy and that you are not going to be in a case to where you are denied and the insurance company just says, well, you need to figure this out on your own. They're going to give you other alternative methods to try, and then we could always appeal if let's say, for instance, because I had a situation happen a few weeks ago, I believe it was Voquinza. I think we did a show on this. You guys may have been out of town. I think it may have been Jeff and I. But there was a medication, if I can remember correctly, called Voquinza that was not being covered by the insurance company. It needed prior authorization, and the insurance company wasn't covering it. And so we helped with the appeal process, and the insurance company started covering the Voquinza. So those are things like that we can help out with. And since she knew that she was going to have someone in her corner, she chose to go with the Medicare Advantage route. And I think she's going to absolutely love it. I don't think she's going to have any issues with it, just like, 95% of our other clients. So,
and if you fall into that 5%, you have backup that'll be able to help you. So, well, we really appreciate your time this morning, Frank.
Yeah,
thanks for coming in.
And I just wanted to add, I was lucky enough to sit in on a meeting with Frank, and working with a professional like Frank is a lot more than just onboarding you onto Medicare or choosing a plan during open enrollment. We had a Medicare client stop in, and he had received a check for $605 that he wasn't quite sure of, and Frank,
the insurance company was sending him money.
Sending him money.
Sending him money because Frank had helped him shepherd him through the process of recouping a dental benefit from multiple years
from
prior,
2022,
which was great. So not only was he able to recoup that money, he was able to get an explanation on what it was, and then he had some fitness benefit denials that Frank was able to get on the phone with the insurance agents and deal with it and expedite it in a manner, and hopefully he'll be receiving his check shortly. But these are just some of the benefits that you will receive when you work with a professional like Frank. Or I don't even want to say a professional like Frank, when you work with Frank. I can't speak to what other people are doing, but I know that he is dotting every I, crossing every T, and making sure that not only are you being onboarded in the right way, or you're choosing a plan that you're comfortable with, but when things arrive during the year that you're not quite sure of or that you have a question about, you have a go-to source that you can reach out to and get satisfaction almost immediately. And I don't know that you can put a price tag on that, but I do know that the price tag to sit down with Frank is zero.
Zero. That's right.
Right.
Free. Well, I appreciate that, Rob, and absolutely love helping folks as much as I can. So.
Awesome. Well, with that, we are going to take our first break of this hour. When we get back, we'll be here to answer your calls and questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the text line. We'll be right back.
Quiet down. Here she comes. Surprise! Your accountant just emailed to say your quarterly taxes are way higher than you were expecting.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting discounts with a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Also, your favorite employee is leaving. They're going to pursue their dream of being a veterinarian.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you print it all for Mother's Day?
Oh, of course. Photo gifts like canvas prints, photo puzzles.
Can you print it all for graduation?
Sure can. Custom cards and invites.
Can you print a huge banner with the grad's picture?
Oh, definitely.
Even an embarrassing baby picture?
Oh, those are the best kind.
I know, right?
Print it all for moms and grads at Staples. And right now, get 40% off custom cards, invites, and photo gifts. N75 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
I love a day on the water with friends, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis sometimes holds me back. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy.
Teaching music is my passion, but my active psoriatic arthritis can limit me at times. Now I'm treating my joint symptoms with Skyrizi.
With Skyrizi, most people with plaque psoriasis saw 90% clearer skin at 4 months.
Or if you are an adult with active psoriatic arthritis, Skyrizi helps you move with less joint pain, stiffness, swelling, and fatigue.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
There's nothing like clearer skin.
There's nothing like better movement, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZI to learn more.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2, even though we only have 25 minutes left. Thanks so much for tuning in this morning. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
And we are willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Nice segment, by the way.
It was a great segment.
Yeah, Frank's terrific. I mean, there's no question about it. He does a great job for us and for the clients, and that's the listeners.
That's right.
All folks like you, 55 and older, you're Medicare eligible, you're thinking about Medicare eligibility, you want to talk to somebody, Frank's your boy.
Frank's also added like an additional service where he's happy to help mom and dad too. Where if your parents have questions about their plan or they want a review of their plan, we've seen many families coming in. So we've got, our clients retired. Maybe their parents have been on the plans for quite some time. Or maybe our clients have taken over the responsibility of care for their parents or even the administrative side of things. And Frank's there to kind of help out with, well, it looks like this is what mom and dad have. This is why you're paying these things. I think it's a really nice additional service that he's always happy to help with.
And we're only 5 months away from annual open enrollment.
Can you all believe it? You just started your plans. It's almost time to look again.
We're going to have Frank chained to his desk for a good 6-7 weeks.
That's right.
As well as being here on the show on the Big 550 KTRS. And while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts again at 314-931-5877, let's talk about our rock stars of the week.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Joe and Sally. They're both 63, and they both work from home. After listening to the show for some time, they decided it was time to come in for a coaching session.
Woohoo!
Joe has been working from home since COVID and does not foresee his employer requiring him to return to the office on a regular basis. That's heaven. Judy is...
Sally, unless Judy is...
unless she had a name.
Judy's a girlfriend?
Sally is not so lucky. Her current manager has been floating the idea that Sally may have to come into the office at least 3 times per week. Unfortunately, Sally's home is now 45 minutes away from the office.
So like so many people during COVID, when they were able to work from home, that might have changed where or how they were living. Like, hey, we can move further away from the office because we don't have to go there anymore.
So naturally, they were wondering if they can both retire if Sally is forced to return to the office and decides that, you know what, I'm just not going to do that.
That's nice.
Real question is, are we rock stars? And to answer that, we really need to test their scenario, which, as you know, we love to do. And we like to do this on our big 6x8 foot whiteboard, which we do in our office. And we like to do what I like to call, this is your life. That's true. So, and we always start off with cash flow, right, babe?
That's right. So, we send out a questionnaire that asks quite a few questions about your pedigree information, your family, your income, your expenses. One of those questions is, how much are you spending every month? And after a little bit more of a conversation with Joe and Sally, we determined that $6,000 was what they needed after taxes to make their current lifestyle work. We have to gross that up for taxes. So in retirement, we need to incorporate the expense of taxes back into your monthly expenses. And we're going to use a 20% tax to accommodate for that, meaning that the $6,000 really is about $7,200 a month.
And we know that at normal retirement age, which is their age 67, a couple of years from now.
About 4.
Exactly. Sally's Social Security benefit's going to be about $2,400, whereas Joe's Social Security benefit will run about $3,100 a month, totaling $5,400.
Nice.
They need $7,200.
So that means they're short about $1,600 a month,
or about $19,200 a year. So, question then becomes, do we have enough capital to make this work? And I like to call that the milk money.
Right.
We divide that by 4%, which is the prudent rate of withdrawal.
That assumes that you'd like to live off the interest and the earnings of your capital and try not to deplete the principal.
Exactly. And that number comes out to be, Robert, a magical
$480,000.
So what do they have in their vault?
$90,000 in their savings.
Fabulous. His 401k is running about $1.4 million, and hers is approximately $360,000. And we know that we never include the vault, their savings, as part of their retirement capital.
Right. We don't include that as investable assets because we don't want to invest those assets.
You need that emergency fund because there's always an emergency around the corner, whether it's a water heater, a wedding, a new addition to the family, that last car you're going to buy, maybe a boat.
A boat.
Well, and you just want to be able to sleep at night comfortably knowing you can deal with these if they do come up. And so between the two of them, we have investable assets of about $1.8 million. They only need $480,000 of milk money.
But that assumes they're 67 today.
That's right. So, of course, we need to do a little bit of math, right? So we take basically their need of approximately $7,200 a month times 12 months times 4 years. And that means we need approximately $345,000 of additional capital to bridge them from today to normal retirement age, assuming they both wanted to
retire both put off Social Security and retire at the same time.
Exactly. And so when we add those two together, the 480 and the 345 puts us up around somewhere in the area of about 700-some thousand. They've got $1.8 million. Let's give it to them. Woohoo! They are rock stars.
But you left out an important piece that I know many people are thinking of, especially after our segment with Frank.
There you go.
Their Medicare costs.
They're pre-Medicare
they're
costs.
youngsters. They're not qualified for Medicare yet, so we have to build in some medical related costs before they get to Medicare, before they get to see Frank.
Right.
And so with health insurance, we're thinking we're going to add approximately $1,500 a month or $18,000 a year. We're going to do that for 2 years because they're 63 the minute they're eligible for Medicare.
That's going to fall away.
They make the big leap, another $36,000. Forget about it, right?
So 345 plus the 36 is it's just shy of 400,000 plus the 480 that they're going to need when we get to turn the faucets down on their distributions, because Social Security will come in and make up about 5,400 of their need. We're still below 900,000 of required assets.
And, I think what's important here is to sort of stop and, if you can, kind of imagine this. We know that we have to isolate approximately 860,000 of the 1.8 million for, as I like to say, the milk money. That's the capital we want to preserve, protect, make sure that it's continuing to prudently grow, and we're going to use for cash flow purposes. But in their particular situation, if they can buy into that idea, then they really have almost $1 million more of excess capital. So when it comes to if I need to make a large expenditure, or if I need to increase my income, is this going to tip the apple cart? That's really what we wish we get a lot. Is this going to tip over the apple cart? And the answer is no, it isn't. But being a situation where what we're then doing is we're saying, okay, certain assets have certain functions in their portfolio to deliver income. Some are there for growth. Some are there for liquidity. I think puts them in a little bit different of a position to consider this. So naturally, their next question was, we're rock stars. If we want to go tomorrow, how do we get started together?
Well, it all starts by arranging a second coaching session. At that visit, we would review our recommendations for their retirement account and be prepared to open new accounts if necessary.
Exactly. And we're also going to agree to review their retirement plan accounts to choose to their choices at this point to make sure that their current selections are really meeting their risk tolerance. And that's something that we find also where, what do you think, Rob? 80% of the people come in and say we're conservative investors, and they're actually not. A conservative investor is somebody that has less than 50% of their investments in equities, stock mutual funds, etc. Most of our clients have more than that, and frankly, they probably need to, and they should. We also agreed that we wanted to make a recommendation to them to a local estate tax attorney because they needed to update their wills as well as their other legal documents to really reflect where they were today because their documents, frankly, hadn't been reviewed for at least 10 years.
And, you make a great point. That's usually the very first move on the chessboard in any client review. I like to print up a beneficiary portion of their statements and just say, hey, can you put eyes on this? Does this reflect your current wishes? Have there been any changes that you'd like? And there's never any cost to change any of this. You can do it as much or as little as you'd like, but we just want to make sure that the documents are up to date and reflect your most current wishes.
And it's interesting that you make that point, Robert, because I was visiting a coaching session with some folks that had watched Erin.
Watched me.
That's right, on Great Day St. Louis.
Oh.
Which is kind of fun. They came in and they said, yeah. And I said, have you listened to the show? And they said, no, we haven't. We really have just gotten it directly from watching Erin on TV. And
wow.
I thought, this is kind of nice.
That is kind of nice.
Well, I reviewed, I had a chance to review their documents, and we found that from a cash flow point of view, they were in a great place. Big pensions, nice Social Security benefits, they were receiving money, et cetera. But they had a large non-retirement, we'll call it a brokerage account.
Okay.
It was only in the wife's name. So I'm looking at the titling, and I thought to myself, I said, is this a TOD? Why isn't this a joint account? And they had told me, about 5-10 minutes previous in the conversation, that they had a trust. And look, it's not that they're not smart, because these are smart people.
Right.
But just because you create a trust, the property doesn't magically go into it.
Right. The document only controls what it's told to control.
Exactly. But it doesn't control the actual asset until the asset is retitled into the trust. So they said, is this difficult too? I said, well, it is. And here's what you have to do.
Not that difficult.
Come on, you're taking away my thunder here, okay?
I'm sorry.
I said, between the time that you leave our office and get to the car, you should call your attorney on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Ask him or her to send you an electronic copy of your trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because your current advisor, should you decide to retain them, and what's interesting, they're not going to because they were visiting with me.
Right. Already kind of made a decision that they want to make a change.
I said, we're going to need an electronic copy because that will give us the information we need to do a new account form. And then a transfer form to have those assets moved over, and it happens immediately. It's simple to do, but again, it's not going to get there until it's directed to be moved.
Well, was that problem more complicated than not more complicated, but more dire than we even revealed? Which is, if the account was only in the individual name, did it even have a TOD attached to it?
No, it didn't, baby. It just had her name sitting on the thing. I'm thinking to myself,
like, even if you're married, that doesn't prohibit probate.
Exactly. So what would happen if they'd gotten a car wreck on the way home?
Right.
Kind of crazy. So fortunately, it didn't happen. But,
and I just wanted to go back quickly, which is, so we work with many different attorneys in the area, especially if our clients are already working with a professional. We're always happy to interface with professionals that they've already built relationships with. I'm going to have the opportunity to have lunch with one of those attorneys next week, and I thought part of his practice that it sounds like he does as a matter of course, which I think is fabulous, is once he creates a trust document, he has a secondary document that he creates that he can pass along to advisors that say, this is how these accounts should be titled, this property should be titled, these beneficiaries should be designated, and he has it broken down based on, not just in general, but based on the accounts that he knows that particular client has. So, for example, you have a joint account or an individual account that needs to go into the name of the trust. You have an IRA. You can't title that in the trust, but the beneficiary should be husband or wife, then trust. If you have property, that should be retitled into the name of the trust. So it makes it more concrete and helps you avoid the issue, which is, I have this document. The document says what I want it to say, but you haven't done the work to make sure that the assets are inside of the trust.
Yes, and it wasn't until, I would want to say it's the last 5 years, that previous to that, the custodians, the folks that you're setting up these accounts with, were happy to receive just the face page of the trust and the signature page. Okay, also if it is on the front page, which is who are the name of the trustees. Now they're requiring, they want the whole document. So what we're asking for those, we obviously have attorneys that we like because they like us. And what we do is... And they do good work. And they do good work. And what happens is when our clients go to visit with them, they know to ask to send us an electronic copy of the trust so that we can make sure the paperwork is done correctly. Because most folks, when they go visit with their attorney, they don't have a copy of all their investment statements with them.
Nice thing is the attorneys now require that too. Well, everybody's getting a little bit more specific.
And the cool thing is that obviously...
the good attorneys do.
Right. Since we're fee-based advisors, we like to think we're on our client's payroll.
Right.
So for us to take the time to send these documents to the attorney for their review doesn't cost anything for the client because it's a time thing for us.
That's right. And you know what I think it's time for?
Break 2.
That's right.
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these messages.
Are you old school or are you new school? Doesn't really matter, because if you need a hardware store, where do you go? Schnarr's Hardware, and their 2 locations, East Lockwood and Webster Groves, and, of course, their world headquarters on Clayton Road. You see, Schnarr's Hardware is one of those places where you walk in and you say, this thing broke off my toilet. Do you have one of these? Yeah, follow me. And they take you in the back, and you pass 19 different aisles of things that you wish you could stop and look at. And do you need a 3-inch or a 4-inch? I think I need a 3-inch. Great. I'll buy 2, and I'll bring the other one back. That's why Schnarr's Hardware has been so successful. It's the customer service and the attention to detail. Whether you need fertilizer or whether you need something for the kitchen, maybe you need something for the big green egg. 2 locations, 1 great hardware store, Schnarr's Hardware. And yes, the popcorn is always free, as well as the smell, because it smells like a hardware store. East Lockwood and Webster Groves, and on Clayton Road in Ladue, Schnarr's, or schnarrs.com. We'll see you there.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Welcome back to the show. It's 10:53 here on the Big 550. We're in our last 6 minutes. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. During our break here, babe, I did get a text.
A text?
I did get a text. I don't get them very often, which is nice, but I did get a text, and it said, well, Jeff, why would someone have to come in for a second coaching session? Well, in many cases, I will tell you, in every case, we don't permit folks that come to visit with us to sign paperwork when they see us the first time, no matter how much they want to do that.
No matter how much we like them.
Exactly. I think it's important for folks to think a little about this. And with some cases, some folks, usually it's a 2-interview process. Sure. In many cases, sometimes it's 3. But you have to be ready, and you have to be comfortable. And for some folks, it may take more than 1 session to do that, which is just fine.
And not only that, we also have to do some analysis after our first meeting with you, which is, do we feel like we're a good fit for each other?
You've brought in so many documents, and, we've had time to review them during the meeting, but, many times they require a lot more legwork, or at least some more legwork. So, we want to be prepared in that second meeting to give you recommendations on how we would move forward if you decide, and if we decide that we're a great fit.
Yeah. As an example, one of the other things that we do during our process is if clients typically bring in life insurance statements, sometimes policies, we want to review these because a lot of times they may be paying premiums they don't have to. They may be even thinking about, do I really need this, and how do I factor and how do I deal with this? And obviously Robert's the expert, and he knows how to talk to folks about that at that time. But what's important here is that, once we feel together, that there's a possibility to move forward in a relationship. We always like to do it at your speed. That's a big thing. And again, for the last 19 years, it's all folks that have ears on us. You're our listeners. That's who comes and sees us, and we love that. And we do certainly appreciate your support. And fortunately, we've been able to help over 600 families. Which is kind of fun.
And we've got some text on the line. Our first text, right? Is there any reason to transfer 401k money to an IRA as I am turning 65 this year? In other words, is it too late to benefit from a Roth IRA?
Well, first thing would be there's no distinction by turning 65, except for that if you're taking 401k assets that are pre-tax and moving them into a Roth IRA, you're going to pay taxes on that transfer. When you pay taxes on that transfer, that amount is part of your taxable income, which means as you are raising your taxable income, you're getting closer to the Medicare Part B premium increases that come along with income adjustment, or the income adjustment that come along with increased income. So you really want to be careful. Number one, are the taxes worth it in terms of adding additional income to your current taxable income? And two, is that putting you in a position where you might see enhanced Medicare expenses down the line? And then three, my question would be, if you currently have 401k assets, if you are currently working, you might call and see if your 401k plan has a 401k Roth component. Many have added those components over the last several years. You could just flip your 401k traditional contributions to Roth. You'll pay taxes on those contributions, but you're not going to pay more taxes by doing conversions.
And I would just add, if you're continuing to work and make contributions, the contribution limits in a 401k are much more generous than they are in an IRA. So if you're still stocking away money, doing it in a 401k is going to allow you to stock away much, much more. I think the contribution limits, even with catch-up for IRAs, are about $8,000, whereas we discussed earlier, you could be making up to $35,000 or $34,750 into a 401k. So it's just something, if you're going to continue to work, say there's more tread on the tires, you're going to work for 5 more years, you're going to be making contributions for 5 more years. It's a way of socking away more money tax deferred, or, as my wife said, into that Roth component.
Right. And I would just add that if you're not going to work, you're going to quit. You should do, if you're compelled to do a Roth conversion, wait until your income drops,
which is after you've been retired, until you're the new tax year.
Right. Because then what will happen is, I mean, you can do a Roth conversion, as Erin said, depending on the size of the conversion, it might affect your Medicare Part B premiums, but
it's definitely going to affect your taxes.
Absolutely. So you don't want to do it during your working lifetime. It doesn't make sense, because you're going to be in your highest. Your last year of work is probably greater than and it may be your last highest year of income during your working lifetime. So the answer is don't do that, which is fine. And we've got about a minute left.
Yes.
And our next texter writes, how comfortable are you working with high net worth retirees? Does the strategies you employ change depending on account size?
I would say the answer is no. I don't think so. I mean, look, we're investment advisors, so the thing is, the more the merrier, let's be honest. Sure. But the other side is that, the same difficulties and issues that folks face, especially in whether it's income planning or even more important, estate planning, are the same whether you have 6 zeros in your net worth or 10 zeros in your net worth.
Ooh.
You may have more planning opportunities because of the size of assets, but the truth is the algebra is always the same.
Right, the fundamentals are always the same. And you know what else is the same? Tuning in to us every single Saturday from 9 to 11. We'll see you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL